The Catholics weren't prepared for what the Knights Templar had done. See, the Knights Templar were already so steeped headlong into the buffoonery of wickedness that they had already enslaved all the people in their whole land. They were the feudal lords. Because see, remember when we read about the time of the feudal lords and the serfdoms and these empires that are basically taken over by warlike clans? The warlike clans were the embodiment of the distorted masculine. And it infected the Aztecs. It infected, you look in the books, you'll see it infected all the people. And it was the same thing, but it was happening on two different sides of the world in two what would appear to be different ways. But when it met head to head, surely the warlike clans had delved into much more darkness than the Jesuits had with their genie-based magic. And so what happened was that the Knights Templar had already been taking in the relics. Whoever their leader is and was pulling all the relics that people have been worshiping and practicing with and accumulating those relics. So by the time that the Jesuits were dealing with the Knights Templar, they immediately came under an agreement to allow the Knights Templar to begin to charge interest. Okay? So nobody could do that back then. Even to this day in Islam, it is illegal to charge someone interest. Look into Hadith. So the Catholic Church was the same way, and Orthodox Christianity was the same way. You couldn't charge interest because everyone knew that if you charge interest, you would enter Set. Set would come because Set never allows you to be free because you'll always be in debt. Mm. How can you make more money unless you've taken it from another person to pay back your interest? Yeah. So it starts the chain reaction that can't be stopped until everyone puts the brakes on it at the same time. So what happens is the Knights Templar, they're infested with this. It's controlling them. See, this entity specifically, which we've been IDing across multiple realms, when it enters into one, it does not just stay in that one. It can enter into thousands, 2,000s. It's that expanded as far as where it's at. So you could have 20, 30, 40, 100 men all possessed by one entity. And that's how this entity generally moves. So it had completely infected the Knights Templar. They built Chateau Rajan or Ralan or whatever it's called, which it's the crypt. It contains all of the essence of the entity that they're worshiping and all the symbolism. Everyone has already most people have done their research on that, but that's just to understand what they were up to. So now they got this interest, and now they also got something else. Sheep. They have good, soft meat. And these are all these new, naive Orthodox Christians that have just been converted to Christianity and given a story that's not actually true to form. In fact, a lot of writings are starting to come up about this individual who was really who they casting as the person Jesus. And none of the whole being worshiped, even dying on the cross, none of that even took place. So what we're seeing is that these people, because if you've ever looked into the eyes of a Jehovah's Witness, if you've ever looked into the eyes of a Mormon, you see such a level of purity. It's so difficult for you to associate that at all with being a part of some kind of diabolical plot or scheme. And the reason is it's more of like food for the diabolical plot or scheme that has been completely manipulated by just basic things of having a husband. See, when people are put into a feminine or receptive kind of status because they don't know where their power is and they're depending on something, then when something's strong, the king, I'm going to protect you. All the kings had the same story. We're going to protect your kingdom from all the wild nastiness and craziness that goes out there. And for that, you're going to give us your taxes. And your taxes could be your children. It's just like the military contract. We own your children. We own your life for the next 10 years. That's what those contracts say. Right now, it's not symbolic. Wake up, people. They say all your property belongs to us for this particular term. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's what was going on. And we see it even in our world today. There's few left that it hasn't happened to. And the Knights Templar were so instrumental in doing this because they had these people that were so naive under their control. And the Knights Templar were seen almost like what we would look at the X-Men today, except for they were really running around. This was a band of warrior monks that seemed to possess some kind of extraterrestrial power through these relics. And you even find them riding around in paintings today with different relics that had different power, different scientific objects, like they told you in the book Bishop Kenko in the the worship of, oh man, it's just Google Bishop Kenko. But anyway, there's a where this entity lives is also in somewhere in the sea, and in the sea was being produced all of what we see today as technology. So what I'm saying is as a Time Lord, you have access to the entire loop. So it's obviously if this thing, which could be Akhenaten or anything for that matter, has knowledge of the future, then it has knowledge of technology from the future. So telling somebody that serves it or giving somebody that serves it one of these pieces of technology to do something to groups of people that are way behind in technology to cause some kind of phenomena that God has power, right? The last part of this is, so the Knights Templar, as I was explaining, they now have these Orthodox Christians. They're protecting them. They're protecting them so they can make their passage through the Holy Land. But what they're also doing is using this as the primary reason to go through these people's land and take areas like they're doing even today. But they were beat back. I'll tell the last part of the story. What happened is that they end up starting all these forts. And there's a reason for this. And you can still see a lot of the Knights Templars forts up to date. As a pass in from normal areas in Europe all the way through passage, all the way into the Holy Land, Knights Templar built forts, 100 feet thick walls on some of these forts. These are master builders. Hello. And in these forts, what they had in these forts were banks. They were also garrisons for their troops. And so as these people are going and making their passage to the Holy Land, what they're really doing is taking these Arab tribes' land. Let's just say it like it really is. These Orthodox Christians that are coming through to see the Holy Land are also attempting to occupy the area like Israel is doing with Pakistan. It's all in Palestine. It's all a political move to attempt to basically dilute this kingdom. But because the root of the magic that these people are depending on actually comes from the country that they're trying to overthrow, Saladin, who's a chief magician, Saladin actually is the great one of the great serpents. That's what the name means. Destroys these people. And for a time, though, because now you see that they're back out there again. And this time they have more ammunition, they have more magic, they have more power to try to do the same thing that they did before. And I'm not saying that either one of these religions is right or wrong. What I'm saying is, in the end, the people will be the reward. That means you. So I'm not on either one side because I'm not nobody's reward. So think about what happens after this. So now the Knights Templar not only are guiding this passage through into the Holy Land, they're also sewing up areas. They're building more Templars. They're building up more temples and fortresses. They got the Hospitallers with them. More people are migrating in to see this Holy Land where their Jesus has been born, which is a fictitious God that the Catholics created. And then the last little blow comes in. Because so many people are getting robbed by real 1001 thieves, but it's 1001 Arabian Nights and the thieves and the marauders. Those people were being subject to them so much that the Knights had a solution. If you deposit your money in wherever you started, let's say in Europe, you could then get a check, which is where we get the word check from today, from them. And then when you get further into the Holy Land, you can go into one of these fortresses and redeem money from that check, the first bank. People don't realize how crucial it is to have banks and currency, especially in the world today and in the world of antiquity, because you can't just go out. Everything is not for free. That's the feminine cycle. That's over. They decimated that. Now everything costs. So you don't have credit cards. So you need to carry all this gold because there was no fiat currency. That didn't make any sense. The Knights Templars invented fiat currency. So before then, you had big bags of gold. And if you were going somewhere like the Holy Land, this is how you reverse engineer it. You got a month of caravan travel. So how do you, so you need camels, you need wine, you need oil, you need salted fish, you need all these different things to make this whole journey, right? Mm-hmm. So what's going to happen when you get out there and you're like maybe a little bit too far from home and the 1001 Arabian Nights roll up on you? So that's why the Knights Templar became so powerful, is because they actually created the system of not only money, but they also were working with Diaboli itself. Because also with this system of interest, they plunged many of the kings into great debt. Now, these kings really wanted to indulge their pleasures, and I'm going to speed this up. Kings indulged their pleasures. So all these scientific inventions like guns and those kind of things were bought to them by sorcerers who sold them to them by the boatload for things that really had value. Until the point where, like the relics, okay, until in countries and people and people who had clear lineage and all sorts of stuff, the Knights Templar came into possession of all of that. And then they made their greatest blow of all time. They faked their death, which we call Friday the 13th, when supposedly the Catholics, who had no power compared to the Templars, send the Templars to their deaths, call an Inquisition in and torture them and get all, and in their testimony, at least they do admit in their testimonies that the Knights Templar admitted to worshiping Oannes, who is Baphomet, and actually spitting on the cross and having homosexual relationships and all these different things that they themselves admitted to. But this is all a play, because we even see in the Catholic and the Jesuit church today, all that stuff was like commonplace. So what you're really seeing is that they faked that they were condemned from society so that they can disappear. That's how the banksters disappeared. And they said the ones that you did know about were absorbed into the Knights Hospitaller. So they're even telling you, hey, they still went on. They just joined in other groups. They changed their name. And then supposedly Knights Templars never existed again until one day they rise up and they start all the secret societies that we see today. And then their spiritual arm becomes the OTO of the Golden Dawn, which practices a level of magic that is so abhorred, because what they've done is they've gone into Persia and they've grabbed the names and the mantras of entities that I cannot even give you a profile on, as far as how much they don't fit into the equation of what we're doing on Earth. Meaning that they've got a hold of what we call sex magic in Tantra of a dark nature. And that's basically necrophilia, having sex with the dead. Hey, that's as far as I can go in that. But if you check it out, you'll figure out this is what's going on. And this is why now every movie you watch, somehow it always ends up taking a turn towards this direction. It's like, just watch what I'm saying. It's like you could be watching a movie and it could just be about something that you would never believe would eventually get to people with hoods on in robes and doing some kind of sacrifice. And you're just wondering, well, wait a minute, I thought I was watching something else, and it turned into this. So it's actually all around. And now it's bold now. So it's coming out, it's revealing itself, and it thinks that it has a place because there's so many people who want that fame and power. Now remember, the whole thing to this is this granting of power. Remember the genie, oh, phenomenal, I'll give you power and 3 wishes, etc. So how it's getting a lot of people, look what it did to those that are in Hollywood. And you can see Beyonce's video in a tense, don't watch it, but that's as an example to, it doesn't matter how much money you have. If you get involved in that kind of thing, your brain is gone. You're so miserable. All her whole thing, and most of these people think, that's why they make all these scary movies, and it's because they're miserable. So what they thought was going to be their fame and their fortune ended up becoming a monkey's paw and became their binding. So, but this doesn't change with any aspect of what they're dealing with. So that's also why the money system, right? Because the Templars created the money after a while. And then from there, something else happened that, I guess is the final part of the conversation today, and why we should take this serious. Okay, so why should you take it serious? Because inside of the bank, unfortunately, there are, which is the temple, 2-dimensional imprints of agreements, we call them contracts, that one has made with that entity. That's how sneaky it got. It just created banks, and it said, hey, if we let people borrow money, then they sign these papers and they say that they're basically indemnified to the bank. Like basically they owe us, but they don't know who us is. They just think us is trading on Wall Street and that us is in a suit, and us looks like, what they want to be. the fresh, clean, successful person. That's what they think us is. But no, us is the entity that wants to indebt souls. And that's why their system has got everyone always in the rat race.